used to a microphone, so I think I used this quick. So I guess I've been here about 4 years now, and as soon as I got here, I pretty much hit the ground running. The very first morning I was here, I remember digging holes in the garden, plant some food. A lot of people have come out here for vacation and to go away from it all, but that's exactly what I came here to do. So I'm down in Kalapana, where it's a little bit different climate. Got a lot of lava land down there. And so it can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes trying to figure out what to plant and where to plant. But the most important concept that I've learned since coming out here is this ahupua'a. And it's the idea that I feel can actually be the unifying factor in so many ways. The ahupua'a, for those who don't know, is the stretch from the ocean up the mountain. And that would also go out into the ocean, and it was divided up so that all the individual families would know where their lands were, where they could go gather, where they go fish, where they go plant. And the other thing about that is this unique island creates so many different microclimates from the ocean all the way up. So yeah, the fish were down in the water, but they needed the hardier plant material that were up the mountain. So they could get the trees and the vines and trading with the people up there. Except it wasn't even trade. It was actually more of a gift economy, and we've just turned it into a barter economy. But it was all about producing what you could, where you were, divvying it up, and it would get passed around to everybody else. It was based on abundance. Everybody could produce more than what they needed. Kalapana, my understanding, has had about 10,000 people living there a couple hundred years ago. We have about 2,000 today. 10,000 people years ago could fill up all the boats that went by with all the food they needed, could feed everybody there 100%, nothing coming in from around the world. Yet today, 90% of our food, give or take, is getting imported in to sustain us. So what happened in this equation here? The war on food has been going on before we were born. It's been going on so long, we don't even see it as a war anymore. But what they've done is they've disconnected, especially out here, they've disconnected the connection. So the railroad lines actually cut right through the middle of all the ahupua'as, in a sense, cutting off that connection right then and there, taking all the land for the sugarcane, taking the land for the pineapples and papaya. You know, even 20, 25 years ago, Monsanto's still taking the land for their GMO papayas. But they took the land in the middle and left the people in the mountain and left the people in the ocean, but there wasn't a way to connect it anymore. So now we're so dependent on all the food all around us from the rest of the world, we don't even see the food just in our own neighborhood. And so one of the biggest things that I've been recently pitching at people is to this recreation of the ahupua'a in whatever sense you can. And the most important to me is going to be the food and the kitchen and where we process it and where we distribute it. And we need these localized, hyper-local food depots that basically revitalize the idea of food as currency. When we're importing so much food from everywhere else, we have an abundance of, you know, one thing or another, and we don't see it as a full meal. But if we had like an ahupua'a food depot in every localized place, we could be bringing in our food, and it instantly has value. It instantly can get turned into something that the chefs there are preparing. It creates jobs. It creates a base of operations to be able to trade with other ahupua'as. Now we have an excess of this, but they don't have that. Suddenly people are bringing in all the food from their gardens. You know, the food depot has a place, has a harvesting team. They can get called up, people go out, gather it, bring it back. Suddenly this place is kicking out so much food, more than it can eat. It's, you know, we can process it, we can preserve it, we can store it. You know, they used to pound ulu into a poi that they could, you know, store for 40 years. It was called ma, and it was like a type of poi. And so there was no shortage of food. And we just leave all our food to go on the ground and feed the mice and the rats and the rodents and the pigs and the monkeys, and they get fed pretty well from us really not paying attention to just the crumbs. But when we add up all our crumbs together, it becomes that stone soup. And so I'm really hoping that this PMA is actually a way to integrate this food depot idea, and we can start creating hyper-local food depots where everybody can just bring in what they got, and it becomes instant value to the community, to them, whether they get food down the road or they get food instantly. Every food depot has the potential to be a local grocery store. So I mean, I'm down in Kalapana. I'm just planting food everywhere I can, up in the jungle, down on the lava lands. I've been doing some gardening projects down in Waipio Valley, helping restore some low-E fields down there, a village site dated over 1,000 years ago. And food just was the way. There was everywhere was set up to produce food, and it was harnessing the local systems. Hilo is a huge blemish on this food system because this was all the lowlands, like it was all the marshlands. Everything down here by the water was actually where the most amount of food was getting produced. Between the fish ponds, the natural growing of kalo in all the water that would run down and revitalize them with nutrients. It was permaculture at its finest because it was harnessing the natural systems that were at play just simply without a lot of energetic inputs. And the ocean would grow the coconuts. They would tend to the fish. The kalo would be growing there with all the fresh water coming down the mountains. So I learned a lot this January. A whole bunch of us planted Kanaka Garden in Hilo, and we did it for a lot of reasons. We had permission from a number of people, but maybe not everybody that we could have gotten permission from, but we had permission from Uncle Chad, one of the grandsons of King Kanea. And it was such a natural thing to me because that's where all the food used to be. That's where nature just did the work. And now they just have tons of grassy fields down by the water, all these homeless people all over, and this giant symbol of wealth in City Hall, all finely decorated. And a lot of the people down on the streets there, they told us that they had been trying to grow food. They had kalo gardens, they had papaya grown, they had soursop, banana, avocado, and everything would get cut down. Everything they tried to plant and grow, the police or the DLNR would come in, the city workers, and just take all their food away. And that's the war on food these days. The people that need it the most, that are trying to get access to it, due to them not paying taxes or however else you want to look at it, they're not equal in the eyes of the law, and they get their food taken away. And in a place like this, it just really doesn't make sense. Here, we have the simplest energetic inputs for maximum productivity. Been a long-term gardener and farmer all over the place, and a lot of times it's a struggle to plant and to grow food. And here it's just such a simple harnessing of natural forces. I just feel like I'm cheating sometimes. Struggling so many other places, and then to come here. So a lot of people who just started growing food here, they don't, I mean, yeah, there's bugs and there's pests and stuff, but it's not as much of a struggle in my mind as anywhere else. And so nature just does its thing. Nature has this cycle and the circuitry, and it's just doing its thing constantly, nonstop. And that's what permaculture is trying to do, is just plug ourselves into this equation a little bit, make it as simple as possible, skim some of the cream off the top, and then let the rest get back to digested into the compost pile and recirculate. So we need to start thinking outside the box. We need to start thinking about new creative ways to grow food, to distribute food, The box that we're in is all this imported stuff. You know, it's based upon boats coming every week and making sure the food's there on a weekly basis by boat. And if it's not, then, you know, then we're quite a ways behind. So we need to start thinking about new ways of getting food out there. There's a lot of movements I've noticed around the world that are applicable here too. A lot of people are saving their seeds a lot more, which that's the way it used to be. People never went anywhere without seeds. It didn't matter where you were going. You always brought seeds. It's just the way it was. You never know. So we need to start saving our seeds and throwing them around more where we see disturbed land, where we're driving by the highway going up Mauna Kea. You know, there's plenty of room to throw a lot more fruit trees and just let nature do the work. There's these new grafting techniques that people are, there's a lot of laws against growing food in cities, but you can actually graft another plant to that plant and it'll produce fruit, and you know, they won't know any better. Especially in temperate climates, they're grafting a lot of seeded fruits, apples, apricot type stuff, and getting them to produce on similar family trees without people seeing what's going on. There's these phantom planters I've been following in England, and they just go around and find good areas in the park and plant trees. And there's a lot of people that are just going out and doing it. And that's what I would mostly encourage people to do. There's always going to be bad laws, it seems like, in our world. A lot of the good things in life have always been illegal to do. And if it's illegal to plant food in abandoned lots, then, you know, I support it that much more. So yeah, there's this huge movement of people, you know, trying to plant food, trying to network together, work with local communities, and I think that's going to be a huge part of it too. It's just going to be, how local can we be? You know, we start seeing our own streets as its own little village, as its own little town, and see how we can function as a tribe together. I think we're going to start finding a lot more creative ways. I'm actually really enjoying all the adversity we're going through personally. I always figure that we're pretty much doomed unless we have some kind of crisis situations to bring us together. And so I always find that unpredictable things give us new creative ways of dealing with situations. And that's how we're going to solve things. We're not going to solve things using the same old methods, the same old techniques, and we're going to have to think outside the box. And that's the pitch to me. The box is the ahupua'a, and the more local we can connect these food networks, simplest solution is the easiest. And we need to watch our energetic inputs, and that's what we're doing when we're thinking local. Is we're not overexpending. We're not having stuff shipped around the world 5 different times to get to our doorstep. And I think we'll actually find that this land in particular is filled with resources we don't even know that we have yet. Like, they're all over the place. Everywhere I go, I see so much stuff. Everywhere I go, I see things we forgot how to use it. You know, and so in a sense, we've just gotten addicted to going to the store, addicted to that simplicity. When in reality, you know, there's soap ginger growing around the corner.
It's time for some intervention.
Yes.
With this addiction.
Yeah, and so I figure, you know, everything is conspiring for us. Everything is conspiring in our best interest. It may not be easy all the time, but I think it's encouraging us to find creative solutions that are actually the best solutions. You know, and we've just gotten used to the simplicity of civilization, but in reality, it's really not that simple. The way that they have to cut corners to deliver everything around the world. So yeah, just appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate everybody's interest in strengthening your community, and appreciate everybody's interest in getting healthy and getting local food. Oh, and a big shout out to the mushrooms out there because there's so many delicious mushrooms all over the place. People don't even know there's so much good medicine in the mushrooms. So I just have to let people know that.
Do you have some, you had mentioned something about the Noni Farms being a possible food depot down for Puna people. Is that still kind of a growing idea? Or?
Well, if not there, somewhere else. You know, we're definitely talking to a lot of different people. And we're just trying to make sure people want it, where it's going to go. But yeah, we're looking at like old businesses like that aren't being used.
What was that? What was that Hawaiian phrase that you said?
Ahu Puaha.
What does that mean again?
Ahu Pua'a. It's a Ahu Pua'a. I'm clean up between the two A's. Ahu is the stretch. So if you looked at the island like a pie, it gets wider, Malco, opening up the pie, and then as it goes Malco, it gets more and more skinny, kind of as a basic idea. There was Konahiki that were in charge of every single Ahu Pua'a that understood the relationships between them, so that if your PE were suffering because there was for whatever reason, then it would be, hang up on the fishing for a little bit, and then it would restore the balance, and then so the Konahiki were always talking to each other and understanding the island as a whole, just like a whole family, the microcosm of a family. You know, sorry to answer that for you.
No, it's great. Yeah, it was like the middle ground was able to distribute everything. And if we had something similar, we could communicate across, you know, all around too. The Ahu Pua'a down here in Hilo was where the Kamehameha statue was, right up in Mauna Kea. That was
Wow.
that of the royalty right there.